With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halverson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, the first evaluation of CDFA's Climate Smart Agriculture programs. We'll have details. But our top story today, USDA has just released its new food price forecast for this year. Gary Crawford has details.
Each month, Agriculture Department economists study retail food price data and trends, and they issue new forecasts for food prices. And here's the latest one covering all of this year.
Prices for food at home or groceries are predicted to increase by 1.2% in 2024.
USDA economist Megan Schweitzer says they had been predicting food price inflation this year would only be 1% even, but prices for a couple of key food categories have been higher than expected.
You saw a few categories with larger increases this month, such as beef and veal. Prices rose by 1.8% this month, and egg prices rose by 5.7% this month. So forecasts for those categories in particular ticked up a bit,
pulling up the expected average grocery store food price inflation rate to 1.2% this year, which would still be the lowest annual food price hike in 6 years. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Canada's railroads are running again. Dennis Guy reports from Canada.
In response to the federal labor minister's request, the Canadian Industrial Labor Relations Board has ordered Teamster Railway employees back to work and for a binding arbitration process to begin immediately. The Labor Board also ordered that no further labor stoppage would be allowed to occur during the arbitration process. That means the union's strike notice, issued to CN Rail, is now effectively canceled. In his request to the Labor Board to impose arbitration, Minister Steve McKinnon stated that the rail companies and unionized employees had reached an impasse and that international business and trade relationships were at stake, so the government had been forced to act. The two rail companies were pleased with the Labor Board's announcement. Management at CN and CPKC had been requesting government involvement for some weeks. Conversely, the union says that its members will lawfully comply with the order, but Teamsters Canada has also said that it intends to challenge the government's intervention. Christopher Manette, Director of Public Affairs for Teamsters Canada, believes the current outcome sends an ominous message to unionized workers.
We're extremely disappointed. We're obviously going to be appealing this decision, but for now, we will abide by it. The federal government has essentially sent the message that corporate Canada, all they need to do is shut down their operations for a few hours, and the federal government will swoop in to save them and to break a union. This is going to have implications not only on railroaders, but on any federally regulated worker.
Over the weekend, nearly all signs of pickets disappeared, and the first employees were expected back to work at midnight on Sunday night. Matthew Holmes is Senior Vice President of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Holmes said that he was pleased that the Canada Industrial Labor Relations Board implemented the back-to-work order so quickly. He said that a negotiated settlement would have been a best-case scenario ahead of binding arbitration, but he said that if the government had decided to go the legislation route, this railway stoppage could have dragged on indefinitely.
It's always best to see something negotiated at the bargaining table. Binding arbitration is the next option. In terms of back-to-work legislation, to recall Parliament, the Senate is also involved. And to move this through the debate and into legislation, it takes a tremendous amount of time. In the meantime, we're all left hanging.
The 9,300 Teamsters directly involved in this dispute include engineers, conductors, dispatchers, and yard workers. The first rail line employees reporting back were expected to be on the job on Sunday night. Reporting from Canada, I'm Dennis Guy.
The final numbers from Pro Farmer's 32nd Annual Crop Tour are out. Andy Peterson has more.
Record yields on both row crops. That's the final estimate from Pro Farmer's annual crop tour. 181.1 bushels per acre on corn and 54.9 BPA on soybeans, to be exact. Eastern Tour leader Brian Grady says, as always, it's a snapshot in time. However, he does like what he sees out in the fields with around 30 days left in the growing season for most.
Kernel depth seemed really good, actually. I didn't see an issue with that. Some of the less mature, it hasn't had time yet. So that's to be determined on those years, but generally the kernel depth was fine.
Longtime tour agronomist Mark Bernard says one thing he's taken note of are higher soybean pod counts.
And I think part of that is due to the fact that people have reduced their soybean planting populations, and that's definitely noticeable. We don't see near the plant counts that we used to see.
Total production projected by ProFarmer is 14.9 billion bushels of corn and 54.9 billion bushels of soybeans. In regard to the impact on crop prices, analyst Mike Zuzzolo from Global Commodity Analytics says the projections track with what he saw a week prior on his own tour for corn.
With the ProFarmer numbers out and the weather being uncertain, I would say the first 3 days of the week is going to dictate next week whether the beans can go up by themselves without the help of corn and wheat like they did on Friday. If it's raining, I can't see that the beans would be able to do much without the corn and wheat coming in and supporting them.
As far as soybeans, he says he's estimating a couple of bushels less per acre than ProFarmer, but he believes some of the market impact from those yields may be overshadowed by what's happening with the Canadian railway labor situation.
I'm going to play this like the pandemic for my clients. A supply chain disruption. Yes, you'll have winners and losers, but overall, like in the pandemic and those supply chain disruptions we had, those problems result typically in lower demand due to higher prices, due to shipping problems, delays on goods, and I'm concerned the funds and the investment flows will treat us like that in agriculture.
He adds the recent uptick in demand has been a nice market feature. I'm Edie Peterson.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. In today's National Spotlight, Iowa's creative casseroles took center stage on the last day of the state fair there. Riley Smith has more.
On the last day of the Iowa State Fair, the Food Bank of Iowa held its 4th annual Chopped Casserole competition sponsored by Nationwide. This year's winner was Susan Jones of Winterset, who took top honors with her barbecue meatloaf, mac, cheese, and corn casserole, and received a $1,200 cash prize provided by Nationwide. The competition challenges entrants to create easy-to-make recipes using affordable ingredients that are also easy to obtain from food pantries. Food Bank of Iowa CEO Michelle Book said each casserole looked delicious.
It was amazing. We had 30 to 40 casseroles, and it was everything, and they all looked fabulous. They came presented in different ways, cast iron, and a variety of other attractive ways. But this is our 4th annual Food Bank of Iowa Chopped Casserole Contest. It's the 4th year that we've worked with Nationwide. Nationwide was the proud sponsor. So they have helped us with the prize-winning money. This year, the first prize won $1,200. We had a second and third prize winning as well. But Nationwide has been here to support this contest from the very beginning.
Book said the most important aspect of the competition was to raise awareness for food insecurity across the state of Iowa.
But the most important thing that we're doing here today with this casserole contest is to build awareness for people who are struggling to make ends meet, building awareness for people who are food insecure. Today, 42% of the kids in Iowa get breakfast and lunch paid for by the federal government at school. I think the number would be higher of the number of kids that are eligible. Probably half of our kids in Iowa are eligible for free and reduced breakfast and lunch. Food insecurity is a big problem in Iowa. It's a huge problem across the United States.
One of the biggest factors impacting the growth of food insecurity has been the average wage in Iowa. In fact, Book said the median wage for a single parent is not enough to provide for even one child.
Even though we think we've seen some increase in wages since COVID, it's slowed down. Wages really are stagnant across the Midwest. Affordable housing is a challenge, access to daycare, mental health care, physical health care. It's just the cost of living is simply beyond the reach of many Americans today. And we're seeing a huge increase in food insecurity that continues to grow. It started on April of 2022, and food insecurity has continued to grow every month since April of 2022 when federal COVID relief programs sunsetted.
Book added that the Food Bank of Iowa also highly appreciates the support from Nationwide to fight food insecurity across the country.
Nationwide, it's the largest insurer of agriculture and agriculture families across the United States. So their very culture of their company is around protecting and keeping their customers safe. Well, they take it a step further because they want to make sure that all Americans, where Nationwide operates, they want to make sure that those Feeding America food banks are supported. So all of the people in those communities have access to enough nutritious food, adequate and consistent nutritious food to live healthy lives. And Nationwide is thoroughly, completely invested in that. As a Feeding America food bank, Nationwide is by my side today at the fair, but every day throughout the year, Nationwide is by my side.
That again was Food Bank of Iowa CEO Michelle Book. For more information, visit foodbankiowa.org. I'm Riley Smith reporting.
That's today's National Spotlight. Now here's John Harris with the Livestock Report.
U.S. Meat Export Federation and USDA officials recently sat down with their Colombian counterparts in an effort to smooth some import challenges in the country. USMEF Director of Export Services Courtney Heller has more details on the seminar, which was made possible through support from the National Pork Board and the Beef Checkoff Program.
USMEF Colombia, USMEF Denver, and the Foreign Egg Service Post in Bogota came together with an idea to build relationships and really improve understanding of how both markets work, particularly in relation to importing U.S. beef and pork into Colombia. We had some outstanding technical trade issues that we felt that would probably be resolved if we just really met and discussed how the industry worked. In that time period, as we were arranging this seminar, high-path avian influenza was found in some of our dairy cattle, and Colombia started to ban U.S. beef if that high-path avian influenza was found in dairy cattle by state. So this program evolved into something that would also cover addressing that trade barrier in addition to just the overall relationship building efforts that we had in mind.
U.S. representatives at the meeting offered a farm-to-fork view of the U.S. meat industry to give the Colombian officials a better understanding of USDA's food safety oversight.
The difference between Colombia and the U.S. is that Colombia has very few federally inspected plants, and in our country, almost every, and especially every large plant, is federally inspected, and the infrastructure is very large and very effective. Another key difference between our industries is HACCP is not mandatory in many countries, including Colombia. But in the U.S., if you're federally inspected, every facility is mandatorily using HACCP as part of their day-to-day operations.
For the U.S. Meat Export Federation, I'm John Harris.
This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. We will be back in just a moment with more of the day's agriculture news. Coming up in a few moments, we'll have today's This Land of Ours report, but first, more of the day's agriculture news. And with a preview of what you'll hear today on AgNet West, here's Brian German.
A study commissioned by the Office of Environmental Farming and Innovation has evaluated several climate-smart agriculture programs to better understand the experiences and results of grant recipients. Surveyed grant recipients reported positive outcomes, with 75% recommending funded practices and 71% noting increased operational resilience. Key findings include high maintenance and knowledge gains among participants and strong satisfaction with program staff. However, challenges were noted, particularly with application processes, and OEFI has addressed some issues by simplifying applications through tools like Replan. Despite successes, areas for improvement were identified, such as understanding the discontinuation of some funded equipment and low long-term compost adoption. The study's insights will help to guide ongoing enhancements to CSA programs. Farm equipment sales showed a mixed bag of results for the month of July. A recent report from the Association of Equipment Manufacturers shows that in the U.S., sales of four-wheel drive tractors saw a solid boost, up 18.6% from last year and 5.2% overall for the year. However, at the same time, sales of all ag tractors dropped by 14.1% in July and are down 11.9% for the year. Canada followed a similar trend with a decline of 15.5% of total ag tractor sales for the year so far. Despite the rise in four-wheel drive tractor sales, overall farm equipment availability is declining, especially in the subcompact tractor market. Industry experts say the market is facing challenges. However, there's hope that a new farm bill could help provide stability. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is giving nearly $4.1 million to help small-scale, underserved, and organic farmers learn about managing risks and using climate-smart practices. This funding through the USDA's Risk Management Agency supports nonprofits and universities in providing training and resources. RMA has already invested $13 million since 2021, and this new round of funding will support 15 organizations, including 6 new partners. These groups will work across all states, offering education and tools to help farmers manage risks. RMA Administrator Marcia Bunger explained that the investment in these partnerships will further the agency's efforts of providing growers and livestock producers with training and resources about risk management options and how to apply them to their farming businesses. Scientists have developed 4 new varieties of long beans that are resistant to pests like aphids and nematodes. The development is significant as aphids can destroy the plants by attacking their leaves, while nematodes damage the roots, leading to fewer beans. Researchers from UC Riverside worked with farmers in Fresno to create these new varieties by crossing local long beans with pest-resistant African cowpeas. The new varieties and the methods used for cultivation are detailed in a new Journal of Plant Registrations paper. The new beans should help reduce the need for pesticides, which could help to revive the market for long beans as consumers become increasingly critical of crop protection materials. One of the new varieties even grows without needing a trellis, making it easier to harvest by machine and cutting production costs. UC Riverside reports the research team plans to keep improving these beans and is currently introducing the new varieties to Central Valley farmers. UC Agriculture and Natural Resources has a new guide available for the olive oil industry. The olive oil industry in California has undergone significant changes over the last decade, with acreage of oil olives surpassing that of table olives. UC experts have turned their expertise to this important market to release the new Olive Production Manual for Oil. The extensive manual covers all aspects of olive production for oil, from orchard site selection to processing of virgin olive oil. Changes fueling the growth in production are covered, including establishing high-density and super high-density orchards, the latest methods of irrigation management, harvesting methods, and many other topics. The concepts presented in the book are scalable, benefiting large and niche growers alike. The new resource, along with production manuals for a variety of other crops, is available at anrcatalog.ucanr.edu. I'm Brian German for AgNet West Radio Network.
Predicting food price inflation for next year. That's coming up on This Line of Ours. Shoppers are seeing low food price inflation this year, but what is the outlook for 2025? Here's Gary Crawford.
USDA economists are forecasting grocery store food prices this year to end up only 1.2% higher than 2023. And for next year, shoppers could see food price hikes
slightly lower than what we're predicting for food price increases in 2024.
USDA economist Megan Schweitzer. So the forecast for grocery store food price inflation this year is 1.2%.
And 1.1% in 2025.
In fact, Megan says it's possible food prices next year could end up falling below this year's level. It has happened before.
In both 2016 and 2017, food at home prices actually dropped. In 2016 by 1.3%. And in 2017, they dropped by 0.2%.
So stay tuned. The food price story next year could be a good one, barring any unexpected shocks to the system.
Hopefully not too many things that nobody's expecting come along.
Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Here's Cindy Zimmerman.
I'm John Christensen with Christensen CPAs, and happy to be at the ACE conference.
Well, you have been a fixture here at the ACE conference, and here at this conference, you were presented with the Merle Anderson Award, the biggest award that they present here. What was your reaction to that?
Well, I was very honored, and it was very humbling. The Merle Anderson, I did have an opportunity to meet and know Merle Anderson, and to receive the award that is in his honor was very special for me, because he was a very special person and founded, and his persistence in working and making agriculture better was really something to see.
Tell us about your company and how you got your company into be a very big part of the ethanol industry.
Well, it was probably 30 years ago. Our CPA firm was ag focused. That's what we do. So we do everything ag with ag producers as well as ag business. And so in the mid 90s, had the opportunity to work with the ethanol when the ethanol dry mill industry was getting started, and tried to help those plants get developed. Started out with a group of farmers that were sitting in the coffee shop or in their room and saying, we need to create value added for our corn. And so with the dry mill ethanol plants, our firm and our role was to help them on a financial perspective, get them structured and get them financed, help them raise equity, develop the financial pro formas associated with that. And then we just became involved in the industry and met some great people along the way.
Well, over 30 years, things have gotten a little bit more complex as far as helping the industry with the kinds of things you do. And your firm has expanded. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, the industry, our firm has had to evolve as the industry has evolved. And with that has come the complexity of, beyond the auditing and tax work, gets into the compliance with the EPA, with the low carbon fuel standard, and that's become a very big part of the firm. In addition to that, we had the opportunity 20 years ago to help the firm analyze themselves and improve for constant process improvement. We developed the benchmarking. And so we've got, over 82 plants that are participating with financial and operational metrics that they're comparing themselves to, and which has been a great thing to work with the industry on that and provide them that information. And also we use that information with the trade groups, with ACE and RFA and with Argonne National Labs, so that they can help the regulators and legislators make decisions with accurate data and accurate, up-to-date data for the industry. And then the the third leg is the Beyond team, which is the software solutions for commodity processing. And that has evolved with it, and making the transactions that are happening in the industry with the marketers and the electronic transfer of data, which will be more important now as we get into the realm of feedstock carbon index tracking.
But while this award went to John Christensen, it seems like there's a lot of other people behind your firm that also deserve recognition.
That's absolutely the case, and I'm the person that was standing up on stage, but the award was about very smart, talented people that I work with every day, and they're the ones that have these innovative ideas. And the team at Christensen, the benchmarking team, the Beyond team, they're the ones that are creating the ideas and working with the industry and helping propel the industry forward and helping make a difference. And I think everybody, that's the one thing within the firm, is that everybody does really want to make a difference and feels like they're making a difference.
Very good. Anything else you want to add?
I'm just honored to be part of the ethanol industry over these years, and it really comes down to the people that are part of this industry. These are the industry was founded on grassroots people. It's rural development. It is people that are really all working toward a common goal of helping the agricultural sector. And so it's the people that really make this a great industry.
Real people, that's for sure.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, John, and congratulations. Here at the ACE Annual Conference in Omaha, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. For the Conservationist of the Year, what goals would you like to see occur this year?
So this is continuing work as the Certified Crop Advisor Conservationist of the Year. They're looking for certified crop advisors who are trying to aid farmers in getting information or conservation practices. One thing we've identified that is keeping farmers from getting conservation practices is actually just information and products. The current federal regulations actually were written in the 1950s. And at that time, those rules were only restricting fertilizers and pesticides. They didn't put into account other developing technologies such as plant biostimulants and some of these newer technologies we're using in agriculture. And so for 2024, our goal is to really help change the laws that are impacting biostimulant regulation to allow them to be used and treated as a fertilizer, not as a pesticide.
So, what does that process look like to go through that and get that change to be where it needs to be?
Well, actually, there's a very long on-ramp. We've been working on this since 2014, and the bricks that we've laid on this path are now hopefully being included in the Farm Bill. So more than anything now, it's just supporting the work we've already done, trying to get legislators aware of the problem and hopefully enact those rules. There's an act right now by California regulators. It's called the Plant Biostimulant Act. And so the best thing that farmers can do is call up and say, hey, we support this language. This is going to give us more tools to enact those conservation practices and have more products available to us.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com. This is the AgNet News Hour, and we will be back in just a moment. Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Now here is today's featured interview.
Yes, my name is Sean Yofamizo. I'm the Vice President of Marketing Communications for Interplant. We are a plant technology company based in Davis, California.
All right, we are here in North Dakota, and I report in California. My company is based in California. We're AgNet West, and we do agriculture news around the state. I host an hour-long morning show every morning, and I would love to talk a little bit about what you guys do and how this all came to be. First, let's start with telling me a little bit about the business and the type of technology that you employ.
Yeah, so we create plants that signal optically when they're under stress. And what that means is we work with the genetics. So plants have an immune response just like humans. And when they're attacked or under stress, they react at the genetic level, at the molecular level. So those sites where they react are mapped, and we track to those sites and insert another piece of DNA so that when the plant is reacting to a specific stress, it creates a fluorescent protein, which is detectable from as far away as space. The cool thing about that is it's very early because it's tied to the plant's immune response. So within 24 hours of infection or stress, it begins to emit the signal, and that is 4 to 6 weeks before it would be detectable in the field. So we're super excited to have our first commercial product launching in field in central Illinois. It's the inner soy fungal sensor. It's a soybean designed to fluoresce when it's under attack from fungus. We're rolling that out for the 2025 growing season in Illinois and Iowa.
So, you know, you answered all my questions earlier, so now I have to remember what they were so we can get them on tape. You know, talking about data, and you and I talked about data out in the field, there are a lot of ways to capture data, and there's a lot of ways to capture a lot of data, but pinpointing the data that's actually needed and then getting that to growers, not only on time, but before it's needed. How important is that?
So that's really critical, right? Because I think we look at poll after poll, and you see farmers are dissatisfied with the scouting tools they have. They know they're not getting the data they need. But at the same time, they're also saying they have too much data. There's just too much data coming in. How do I interpret this data? I have to be a data scientist to get through all this. So that tension point is very top of mind for us. And so we've designed this system to be very straightforward. It's contained in a seed. Farmers know how to work seeds. They plant them, they grow them. And then we provide the recommendation based on the signal. So it's a spray. You've got fungus in your field. You don't have fungus in your field. So keeping it, the data hidden, there's an awful lot of data going on behind the scenes, but providing the farmer with a usable, simple tool that's indicative of early action. So it's also a signal that doesn't rely on, we're collecting this index that is showing your field is under stress from fungus right now, but there's nothing you can do about it because it's too late. But for next year, so, your house is on fire is a great thing to know, but wouldn't it be better to know, like, hey, there's smoke coming from your kitchen, you should do something about it now. And that's the loop that we're trying to close for farmers, is give them actionable information that's early enough so they can take that action and preserve their yields before they're impacted.
So we were just out in the fields and looking at some very nice looking soybeans, very healthy looking, very big plants. And what you cannot see with our human eyes is the technology that you are using. How is it? How does it work? Tell us again about how the light creating light.
Yeah, so fluorescence is light creating light. So a light source comes in, and you can think of it as like a photon's like a ping pong ball. The fluorescent molecule will capture that one ping pong ball and then emit a new ping pong ball in a different wavelength or color for our eyes. And so what our plants do is they were activated by sunlight. So this is done in the middle of the day. The sunlight hits the plant, and then if it is fluorescing, if it's signaling, it will emit a different wavelength. And we have mathematical algorithms that will disentangle that wavelength from the background scatter of the light so we can detect it.
There, again, something else that we talked about in the field, but for our listeners, we were talking about connectivity issues. And there are a lot of places around the nation and around the world, obviously, where farmers don't have a lot of access to connectivity. And it's needed for, data collection and things like this. Is this needed for your product?
No, I think that was one of the key things that we wanted to solve for, is we wanted to make it scalable and easy to use on a farm without changing anything, because farmers have enough to do in their day without adding, hey, do this data collection point as well. So it was really critical for us to come up with an easy system that made sense with how farmers already operate. Mm-hmm. So again, it's in the seed, they know how to work that, they plant it, and then they're done. The seed grows, we're flying satellites over, we can detect the information, they have access to that. We're not going to charge farmers for the satellite fees, they pay for the seeds, and then they get access to the satellite imagery, and then they can do what they want with that image. They can either use the image itself or drop the data feed into their My John Deere or whatever farm management system they're using, and it's just simple, easy, there's no connectivity, there's nothing you have to build, there's nothing you have to check. You plant your seed, you grow the seed, you get the data.
Yeah. And so at this point, there's not like a monthly subscription they have to buy to access the satellite data?
No, how we're charging, ultimately will be in every seed. That's what we're optimizing for, is to be in the seed. So it's a very familiar structure for farmers. They buy the seeds like they always do. They plant it, and then they have access to the data. Yeah. Where our Crop Voice product, which is rolling out in Illinois, is a fee subscription. So you would subscribe to however many acres you want covered by the network. Think of it as a cellular network. So it's a certain area of coverage, and if your farm is in that coverage area and the sensor goes off, then you get an alert saying, hey, you've got fungus in your area. You and your agronomist go out in the field and take a look and see what's going on.
Right. And again, we're talking about those sensors and things going off weeks before farmers would otherwise be notified.
Right. So because we're tied to the plant's immune system, it's actually responding at the molecular level. So if you were walking on the field, you wouldn't be able to see what's going on at the molecular level of that plant. And it's 4 to 6 weeks before you would actually be able to see the symptoms on the leaf. If you were a trained agronomist walking in the field, it would be 4 to 6 weeks before you saw those symptoms.
All right. And so the company itself based out of Davis?
It is. Our lab is in Davis, California, and then our business team is distributed. We have actually just did our first 2 full-time Midwest hires recently. So we're super excited to be getting out and actually doing business in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is an absurd question, but having a company like this that is it really is very Midwest focused with the types of crops, but based in California, where I am also based, how is that working out for you? It can be a lot, right?
It can be. There's a lot of travel. Like I'm here in North Dakota. I live in the East San Francisco Bay Area. It's a long flight, but I think for us, our culture from our founder down is really about farmers. So the first 3 years of the company was basically our founder talking to every farmer, like Carl Peterson and all the other farmers, Ben Arinci, and everyone that she could get in touch with. And we really institutionalized that approach. And so we have been, we're constantly in the Midwest. We have our lab in Davis because that's where all the plant scientists are and plant geneticists. There's a big pool of talent there. Yeah. So the science needs to be done there because that's where that talent is. But the rest of us are out in the Midwest a lot. Again, we just had our first 2 full-time Midwest hires. We're focused in the Midwest because that's where our customer is, and that's who we need to be tuned into. And I think as a tech startup based in the San Francisco Bay Area, that's something we're very aware of and very we want to pay a lot of respect and give a lot of time to the farmer and the customer that's in the Midwest, and that is something that we're pressing forward very diligently on.
Yeah, I know. As a lifelong Californian myself, it's always interesting to me to see these connections made because there's the stereotype or the thoughts of the Silicon Valley and it not touching rural America, but really it does quite a bit.
It does, and I think not to get myself into trouble, but I think there is a little bit of maybe hubris in Silicon Valley about our technology is great. Here, farmer, take this technology and put it to use in your field. And that's not really how it works, because more often than not, and I think you can see that history is replete with the corpses of startups who took that approach, where they just take that technology and here, farmer, go put this on your farm. And that's not how product market work fits. It starts with the farmer. What's your problem? How do you work now? And how can I make my technology work with you in your real world scenario? And that's really something that we're focused on and committed to.
Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for being out here and showing us around.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming out and taking a look.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. To wrap up our day today, one expert says there is very little standing in the way of a bumper harvest of soybeans and corn. Gary Crawford has more.
As everyone is aware by now, the Agriculture Department is forecasting record high yields for corn and soybeans, leading to what could be the third largest corn crop in U.S. history, the biggest harvest ever of soybeans. The big question at this point is this.
Is there anything that could stand in the way of these bumper Midwestern crops, corn and soybeans in particular?
And we'll let USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey answer his own question.
It doesn't look like there's anything standing in the way.
However, unexpected things can happen. They happened starting August 10th, 2020. Producers were assured that the crop was safe, sound, and substantial, and then nature took a hand and sent that surprise derecho windstorm across the country.
It started in South Dakota and Nebraska, did a lot of its damage across Iowa, worked its way on through Illinois, Indiana, and then on to the east from there. And it did have a significant impact on crop production that year, especially where those winds were 100 to 130 miles per hour.
But Brad said this year the chances of something like that happening are practically zero.
Number one, there's really no sign of any widespread severe thunderstorms anytime soon. And with each passing day, that gets crops closer to maturity. Furthermore, we continue to see the absolute absence of extreme heat.
We've had only really one wave of severe heat all season.
That happened in late June before crops had entered reproduction. And so it was perfect timing for a hot spell, and it did virtually no damage to the crops. Since then, July and so far in August, we have seen very temperate conditions in the Midwest, almost never reaching into the heat stress levels of 95 or higher, except on some of the fringe areas of the Midwest, the South, and the western edges of the Corn Belt. So temperatures have been great.
And most areas have been getting plenty of rain.
And so, again, that gets us well into the second half of August with very few weather-related concerns.
So, a short answer to our question, is anything standing in the way of those record corn and soybean yields?
Probably not.
Probably not. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West online at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find our broadcast team of Brian German and Sabrina Halverson on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.